You are listening to the Better 2 podcast with DM Needom. Hi gang, Donna here. Thanks for tuning into the Better 2 podcast. Today's guest is Shannon Stoker. She is related to Bram in a roundabout way, but it is something that their family talks about and shares, and she shares her stories about her lineage with us. We also talk about her clothing line and her tarot deck that she sells under the name the Ghoulish Garb. And we talk about, surprisingly enough, anxiety, depression, and all the things that go hand in hand with it. This wasn't a topic that we thought we would go to. While we had this fun, light-hearted conversation, as with everything, you sit down with somebody and you just start talking and the conversation flows. And that's one of the things I love about the show. And I'm honored that she felt safe enough to share her story with me. So I hope you enjoy it. Hi, Shanna. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. This has been a long time coming and I'm glad we made it happen finally. One of my friends recommended you from TikTok because you said you had an intriguing story because of your last name. So what is your last name? I know what it is, but tell the listening audience.
My last name is Stoker.
And is that any relation to Bram?
Of course. Yes, I am related to Bram Stoker. So I found out about this when I was in second grade, or that's at least when I remember it being significantly told to me. But my family is known for generations and it's been passed down as a big part of our family history. But when I was in second grade, I've always been interested in history and in anything that I could get my hands on that was spooky and creepy and weird. And so when I was in second grade, so I would go into the library and they actually had a really interesting section of like historical books for children. And there was a book called a haunted history or creepy history, something like that. I don't remember, but I just remember the title made me very excited. And I had read an excerpt from it that told us about, it told you about how the Black Plague was supposedly the inspiration behind Ring Around the Rosie. And I found that fascinating. So very fascinating. And so I decided I was going to write a story, a horror story about a little girl, much like myself in second grade. And I don't remember anything about the plot, but it was amazing, I'm sure. But I was working on it. I think I was on chapter 3. Don't know how many pages were in a chapter. Again, second grade. But I remember it was chapter 3. And I was working on it and I was visiting my grandparents. And that's when they told me, whenever they found out what I was working on, they said, "Oh, keeping up the family footsteps and the bloodline," and that's when it was made a little bit more significant to me how what that relation meant and how important he was. And they kind of explained a little bit more, and we watched some movies, and it was really cool. And that's kind of it also gave me a sense of belonging when I had already at a very young age felt like I was just very different. I'd had paranormal experiences. My mom always said I was a very old soul. So I just always kind of felt like I was friendly. I was friends with everyone, but even being friends with everyone, I still felt alone in ways. And it was just really nice. It felt like, okay, this is who I'm supposed to be. Like, just embrace it. And I'm really grateful for that lineage and for that family history to help me be who I am today.
Well, where do you kind of fit in with that? I mean, how many generations removed are you, and how does that fit in?
So I used to think I was a great niece, but I'm not, because he actually doesn't have any direct descendants with the last name Stoker. He had a daughter, and she, of course, took her husband's name whenever she married, so that the name after him, there was no direct lineage. I believe through our research, we found that I am related to his uncle, so his father's brother. And we have traced our family, like our lineage, all the way back to, I can't remember the town. I should know this by now. But it's in Ireland, and it was Anne Stoker in 1697, I believe. And so the way that the family stories had always been was the clan in Ireland had, some of them had left and moved to Virginia. And we know that like while Bram was writing Dracula, he visited Virginia. He wrote part of the book there. He wrote letters back home from there. So that's very well documented. And then some of that Virginia clan moved down to Washington County, Alabama at the beginning of the 20th century, I believe. And it's a tiny little town that I think to this day still only has maybe one or two stoplights. Very small. I grew up in Mobile, Alabama. So I grew up in a much bigger city, but yeah, we're in Alabama because of it, you know? And, but yeah, I remember going to family reunions and hearing stories about Bram and, you know, or at least about like the lineage and how proud everybody was about that. Yeah.
That's very cool. What you described at school kind of seems like, I don't want to say Wednesday Addams because you said you were sociable, but
Yeah,
there
it's
had to
very
be
sociable.
there had to be that I'm going to get the feeling that you knew you didn't fit in. It was like, I have an occupation with other things that most kids wouldn't find fascinating.
Like, I mean, for instance, when I was in elementary school, you know, those scary stories to tell in the dark books, those were big. And I also, I I remember the teacher's face. There was one day we had silent reading, or I think it was a test. And if you're done with your test early, you get silent reading. And I had just picked up this book, and I was so ecstatic. I remember just like going as fast as I could in the test because I wanted to read my book. And I was the first one done with the test, and I immediately like ran up there, gave it to her, and then pulled this out of my book bag. And I was right next to her desk, like so she could see. And I flipped to, I think it was like the spider lady picture or something, because I'm just flipping through the pictures. And she's like, she called my mother, and she was concerned, if I'm not mistaken. She was concerned. But yeah, I was always interested in weird things that kind of concerned adults sometimes. But I mean, I was great. I also love Disney princesses. I mean, I was normal too, but I think I was just also very good at masking my weirdness after a while. But I don't do that anymore. So
I think that happens though. I think you during school, you kind of try to mold yourself into the norm. That way it's easy.
yes.
That way it's easy.
Yeah.
So when was the first time you read Dracula?
I was in high school. I don't remember what grade. I want to say it was 10th grade, but I was in high school. And then I read it again recently a couple years ago because I was preparing to play. I've actually played Mina Harker in
Nice.
a production of Dracula, so that was really cool. But I love it. I love the way that it's written as diary entries, and I just feel like there was actually somebody on TikTok recently who said it would make the perfect recreate, like somebody to recreate it in modern times as like a found footage film, because it reads like found documents. It reads like you're opening up his research and you're finding all of this information that he's been finding. And I love that. And I think that also was really cool to me because I ended up getting a history degree, and the way that it's written and the way that it's accumulated, and it really feels like a collection of letters you could find in an archive. And it's really, I love that.
Well, and the way we do things now with the shortcut videos, it could lend itself very easily to that.
Yes, very much.
So have you done any more writing since then? I mean, have you written your own book, or that was just a second grade thing and you leave writing to somebody else and you stick to the other performing arts?
Well, you know, I really liked creative writing in school, but the practice of it gave way to being absolutely obsessed with vocal performance and chorus and theater. So yeah, I kind of ended up feeling like, okay, well, that's just, I mean, I'm not going to do anything with writing, you know, but I always enjoyed it, and I had a talent for it according to teachers and according to my own. I'd like to say I feel like I feel like I was very proud of the things that I wrote back in school. And I took a creative writing class in college, and I loved it. And I used to write a lot of poetry. I am a lyricist now for a band, so that's going to be interesting. But as far as writing a book, I was recently told by a psychic that I will write a book one day that will also lead to travel. But I technically, I suppose, have written a book. I've written the guidebook for our Tarot Major Arcana deck. That's totally different. That's
no, but
that's not quite a book.
It's still something.
It is, but I don't. Yeah, it's like quasi. Yeah.
So, what made you decide to make your own deck?
Well, we started this business just to be just to get out of the 9 to 5. We knew we were doing it was very kind of backwards, like according to how I've heard other people deciding to do their business, right? It was, we are going to get out of the 9 to 5, and then, okay, how are we going to do that? Print on demand is an easy way to get into the business without having to keep inventory or a lot of overhead, that kind of thing. So we decided on print on demand. Okay, we'll have to come up with ideas for designs that aren't copywritten, that aren't, that aren't or copyright, that don't have all of those restrictions. We're not gonna be using licensed content initially, essentially. So we want to be able to figure out what is a niche that we can come out with a completely original content that is all ours and will sell. And so we did a lot of thinking on that. And I finally kind of reluctantly pitched the idea for focusing on witchcraft and horror, spooky things, because it's very much a part of who I am, but my partner, not so much. So I pitched it and he thought it was a great idea. We decided to get designs down. Like if we could get 100 designs on paper, we could move forward with the niche. We did that very quickly. And then shortly after we started getting designs done, I was like, I really want to do something with tarot. This was 3 years ago. So it was right before the major like witch boom on social media.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been practicing witchcraft. I've been practicing witchcraft. I've been doing tarot since I was 15. So for about 13 years now. So it's been a big part of my life. I could easily see when the trends were starting.
Yeah.
Where it was headed. And so I pitched that, and I also was getting into the goddess Hecate and learning about her. Had a couple of friends who were working with her in their craft. And so I decided, okay, I would love to do a tarot design based on her, but actually put it into one of the original major arcana cards. So what card fits with her mythos and with her personality and, colors and things like that. And came up with the moon. And I pitched this idea to my partner. And from there, we made the one design. We wanted to see, would people even be interested in it? And the response was overwhelming, not only in just sales and activity, but also in people saying, messaging us, oh, is there a deck for this? We've got to have the deck or something. And so we were like, okay, let's commit to this. Let's do some tarot. Like, let's make a deck. But we put the goddesses on the back burner because we said, okay, our name is the Ghoulish Garb. Let's go with ghoulish. Let's do a Halloween based tarot deck first, see how that sells. It's definitely more novelty. And from there, it just, like I said, it's been tremendously successful. And now we are working on a goddess deck.
Nice. Very nice. I mean, that has been the trend, that people have come up with oracle decks, they've come up with their own tarot decks. So yeah. And yes, I'm one of those people that had to deal with the awkwardness of reading tarot. I actually went to a Halloween party. I had just started really, really learning. I mean, I had messed around with it for years. I had been done good predictions, but I had taken some classes and everything. And I went to this Halloween party, and lack of a better way, I dressed up as a gypsy. And somebody's like, do you have your cards? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And so here I am in this garage. The party's split between the garage and the house. As soon as I pull out the cards, people exit, but then people line up. It was like, okay, so trial by fire here, basically. I'm going to do 30 readings in a short amount of time. And I remember one guy who did not take any, he was not respectful in any way, kept calling them terracotta cards.
Oh, golly.
But you see, it's always fun when you get some clown like that, because then when you start laying stuff out, and they're like, how did you know that? Just do. Sorry. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the funny thing when you're a reader, and I know you know this, is people will sit down and act like they are somebody. You will know them one way, face to face. But as soon as you sit down with reading them, suddenly their secrets are out, and they're just like, I remember there was a gentleman I worked with. He was a lawyer, and he found out I read. He's like, I really want you to read my cards. I'm like, okay. So I met him to read his cards. And he had always been flirty and everything, until I'm sitting here reading his cards, talking about how he's not the most faithful man in the world. Our relationship kind of changed after that.
Yeah.
So sorry to delve in there, but I mean.
No, I love it.
It's just one of those things where it's like people think that when you sit there and how do you know? Well, you just do. I don't know. It just comes.
Yeah.
That's it. Listen. So what's going on as far as the Ghoulish Garb? I mean, it's the Halloween season. Are you running promotion? And Christmas is coming up. Not that that's I mean, that sounds really funny because you have the Christmas holiday, and the only reason I'm bringing Christmas up is because it is a holiday and people spend money. So
they do.
There things leading up to
and
that?
We do have some spooky Christmas designs. So, but yes, right now we've just released our shadow edition of our tarot deck. So there's the original edition of the deck that's all major arcana. The colors are gorgeous and vibrant, and the shading, I mean, it's just absolutely stunning. But for our 3rd anniversary, we wanted to go ahead and release another version of the deck, because we sell, like I said, all of these designs on our merch, our clothing, phone cases, posters, tapestries. And we decided when we were putting these designs up to do a black and white version that's a little bit more minimal, because the colors are a lot, and not everybody vibes with that, especially in the goth community, right? And so we did that, and those have been amazingly successful. So we thought, okay, well, there's obviously people who prefer this aesthetic, so let's give them a deck. And we decided to do that for the 3rd anniversary, and we did a bonus edition of the world, so you get an extra card in the deck that you can decide which you prefer. And I like to just mix them up depending on what I'm asking or what I'm feeling that day. And so that is on sale right now on Amazon. You can look up the Ghoulish Garb Shadow Edition Tarot deck, something like that, or Tarot Shadow Edition. And it is $10 off right now on Amazon. We also have Prime shipping, and we are on Etsy and eBay as well. So if you have questions, I run all of those accounts. You can just email me, message me over there. It's real simple. For the holiday season, for Christmas and the holiday season in December, we will probably be having a big promotion, just because that's usually, even though our niche, people spend money in Christmas and holidays, right? Like you said, that's when you're buying gifts, and goth people need Christmas gifts too. So, or Hanukkah gifts or whatever. And I mean, yeah. So, yes, we will be having promotions then. We've got a lot of really cute, like I said, spooky Christmas. My favorite, it's either between the Krampus as the judgment card with children running in terror beneath him, which is great. Or we have one that is a spoof of The Shining, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, and it is Santa and the door, and it says, "Here's Jolly," and it's great. I love it. It's so silly, and I love it.
Nice. So you do, like, I would take Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yes, it came out October. I was born in March of 93. It came out in October 93. And my mother said that, which is strange. I don't know how in the world I got it, because my mom, like I said, it was not into this kind of stuff. So I don't know why she thought, hey, my child should watch this. My infant should watch this. But she did. And I appreciate that, because I was obsessed. And that was like, it was on all the time. My mom said that before I could even speak, I was like singing gibberish along with the music. I would sit and dance to it. And so, yes, it's been a huge part of my life. I love Night Before Christmas.
So it seems like you were destined to be goth.
I think so. I mean, I think, honestly, I've tried I tried fighting it. My parents did not want me to wear the clothing I wanted to wear. And again, I got really good at masking, and I was in vocal performance around town, which is in Mobile, Alabama, where I'm from, back when I was in middle school and high school, it wasn't exactly, I wouldn't have felt comfortable or appropriate wearing goth attire as a middle schooler who didn't know how to dress goth in the first place. And my family didn't like it. And it was all, so I was like, okay, I'm going to put my clothing on a more appropriate, or what is expected in South Alabama standard, but like my soul will always be goth. And so, yeah, but it's been really nice because of the business that I've felt a lot more comfortable and confident in my identity as both a goth person and a witch. And it's just been such a interesting journey, and I'm grateful for that help with that.
Yeah. I know what the parent thing. 1987, late 86, early 87. I lived in Shreveport, and at the time, Shreveport was very,
Okay.
very, very Southern Baptist and very conservative. And I had black hair, and I had a fake black ponytail I would put in and dress all in black. And I remember one night I had a nice black velvet coat and a big black purse. And I
Yes.
remember getting followed around the grocery store.
Yeah.
Even though during the day they wouldn't, but this was like a Friday night, and they're following me around the grocery store. And I remember hoisting my purse onto the conveyor belt saying, "Would you like to look inside? I didn't steal anything. Just because I'm dressed like this doesn't mean I stole anything."
Yeah. Yeah.
And my
And
mom
see,
was,
that was,
go ahead.
no, please go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, my mom was mortified. She was so glad when
Yeah.
I joined a band, and the guy's like, "You'd be so much prettier if you dyed your hair." And it was like, oh, all right, fine. I know. I did it $80 later,
No,
and I
I
was a
know, but
strawberry
like,
blonde, but yeah.
yeah. No, I was gonna say, that was another reason why ultimately, like, I did decide maybe I shouldn't, maybe this isn't my style right now, because I am a very friendly and bubbly person, like by nature. I'm very I'm outgoing when it comes to people. Like I want to not only make a good impression, but I really want to make people feel comfortable
Mm-hmm.
around me is the thing. I've always enjoyed reaching out to people, and I've always felt like I know who to reach out to and when they need to be reached out to, like we talked about earlier, kind of that you just kind of know sometimes. And so I feel like that was also another reason why I made my appearance a little bit more palatable um, at a younger age, so that I could control that narrative and hopefully try to make people comfortable. But I'm glad of that though, because I think I look at my style, and I don't think you would look at me necessarily and immediately say goth. My decoration style is, Victorian goth. This is my favorite lamp. I'm just going to show it to
Pretty
you. Oh,
nice,
get a little lighter.
nice.
But my decorating style is Victorian goth. My personal style is dark, rich jewel tones and lots of blacks and florals. And it's just like I don't appear as a typical goth, which is fine. Um, but I kind of try to mix influences from my super, feminine, palatable state that I was in for so long that I did enjoy, and then bringing in the darker side that feels more honest to who I am. So it's a nice, it's my Persephone look. That's what it is.
And it's a great look. I mean, when I think back to the 80, the dark phase of my life, it's like I look back at that and I go, the reason I did that at the time was I didn't want anybody to look at me.
Yeah.
And I look at but I think back as an adult and go, okay, you lived in a smaller community, more narrow, dare I say, narrow-minded. You were just a target. You were setting
Mm-hmm.
yourself up for everybody to look at you because you were different. But you don't, when you're
Do you
19, you don't think about it. Go ahead.
Well, and do you think on a subconscious level that also might have been nobody sees me, and let me put up more walls, like let me shield myself, they now when they see me, at least they'll look at me and at least they'll see something, like, do you think,
It's
I don't know, I
it's a possibility. I mean, at the time, like I said, I didn't think about it, and
yeah,
you
well, and
just you're trying to be a rebel, I guess.
yeah, and you're trying to find out who you are through self-expression, and I think that's normal. There's a reason every generation has their fads that they go through like that, that push the boundaries and change the narrative.
Well, it's funny because I went from that to being the strawberry blonde to being the person that the boyfriend would want, the band member, and then to basically being this Hollywood glamour girl in the late 80s, trying with the hot pants and the big hat, and just reinventing myself because I was in a band and I was a bass player. So I reinvented my whole persona of who I wanted to be, and I was comfortable with that look. That's who I
Yeah.
was. And that's the thing, you have to invent who you are to make yourself comfortable, you
That's
know?
it. And we're all trying to do that on some level. We're all just trying to figure out who the heck we are,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And I think for me and for a lot of other people, I think in general, more than some people realize, your aesthetic can help you so much in that exploration process.
Oh, yeah. it can empower you at times. I mean,
Yes.
There was a time when I would wear short skirts and heels, yes, a long time ago, that I would put that on and my personality would change completely.
I understand. I understand completely. I do. I wear kimonos a lot.
Mhm.
I like really flowy fabrics and like there's really like feminine aesthetics and or silhouettes. And so like it's when I put my kimono on, which is after I've done my hair and my makeup and everything else is clothed and I'm about to walk out the door, I put my kimono on and that's when I feel like I'm here. I'm ready. I got
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. And I mean, whether we admit it or not, there's a certain point when we leave the house that if we're wanting to be comfortable and wanting people to notice, you're going to put on that persona. Even
Yeah.
if it's truly you, you're still putting it on because you have to awaken yourself. There's days when you don't feel like being noticed. So you won't be, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
on.
That's
And
another thing that oh, go ahead,
no,
please.
go ahead. Go ahead.
That's one thing I do with like my makeup. Um, I pretty much do the same thing makeup wise every day, but because I used to use it a lot as a creative exploration. But then I just got to the point where I was like, okay, I like this because those days that I deal a lot with depression. I have anxiety and PTSD and CPTSD. And I also have endometriosis, which is a really painful disease. And so I go through a lot of days where I can barely get out of bed or I don't even want to look in the mirror because I just like I can't handle stress right now or like I'm gonna sit in my bed, I'm gonna work and then I'm gonna go back to sleep. And on days like that, whenever I have obligations and I have to get up and do stuff and like I have the will in me to do it, you know, taking that 30 minutes or whatever to put on some music, whatever it might be that day, it could be chill, indie, it could be metal. I don't know what I'm going to be feeling, but I'm going to put on some music and I'm going to kind of like take that time to focus on myself and like on my in thoughts, meditate a little bit and put my mask on in a way, get myself ready, you know what I mean? And be able to look in the mirror and say, okay, I can do this. Like, this is the face of who you see, doing the interviews. This is the face of, you can do this, like, be confident and do it. And it really does help. It's almost like I said, like a mask, but that seems kind of negative. It's more like my war paint.
It makes, I mean, I get it because I mean, I've talked about, when my husband died, when I hit the anniversary of the year mark, I was in the middle of just rolling out my podcast. So here I am, I have this interview and I have to be on and bubbly and everything else.
Yeah.
And I turn the camera off and it's like, I'm in tears.
Mm.
And when I thought about this the other day. It's like, when Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade both took their lives, everybody's like, well, I never imagined that. And because my mom did it as well, all her friends thought my mom was fine. The thing is, we wear such, I know you don't want to use the word mask, but we wear a
But we
war
do.
paint mask or whatever to show the world, because most of the time when somebody says, how are you? They go, or you say, I'm fine. They're like, okay.
That's it. Like, because we don't ask that question much anymore. Or honestly, I think in American society we haven't in maybe a very long time. We ask that question for an actual response.
Yeah.
Because when you want to ask that question for an actual response, you have to, as the person asking, now put more emphasis. You have to put your hand on them. You have to say something else that says, how are you? Like, really,
Yeah.
you know, because saying it alone isn't enough to elicit the actual response that you might be asking for. And it is sad. I wish that we could be more open, and I'm working on that. I got a lot of trauma that has led to me hermiting a lot whenever I'm in those bad days instead of talking or asking for help. And I'm not the only one. I feel like that happens. That's why so many people who everybody thinks are fine end up taking their own lives. And it's easy, especially when you're not seeing me every day, to see my really good days and just to be like, assume that's all it is, right? I smile a lot, I'm happy, I laugh, I make friends. Why should I be depressed? And it's just a chemical imbalance. There's no reason. It just is, but I try not to let people see it so that they don't worry too much. But then, double-edged sword.
Well, it's, you brought up PTSD, and the fact is people have PTSD without, everybody's like, well, if you went to war, then you have it. There's so many reasons you can have it. So many reasons, and nobody really acknowledges it. I'm not taking
Mm.
anything away from somebody who went to war, because that's a trauma all in itself. But people can have trauma from being a kid. They can have
Mhm.
trauma from their life. You know, I mean, I watched my husband die in front of me.
Mm.
So whether I admit it or not, there's some trauma there.
Oh, for sure.
But you don't think about that. You're just like, oh, well, well, I'm good. I'm good. Everything's good.
And
So
you're,
go ahead.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
You're, I believe, in the same generation as my mom. And I've noticed that, especially um, because I'm really grateful. Like, we didn't talk about that stuff growing up. Like, I've had depression since I think I've had depression since I was a child. And I didn't even say the word out loud till I was 21. And you know what I mean? And it's since then, I'm 28 now. The past 7 years, I've done a lot of work on my healing, and I've done a lot of reading and therapy and all this
Yeah.
different stuff on psychology and everything, trying to figure out my mind. And I mean, I'm not trying to say that I know. I mean, I
No.
just strictly about me, but like, I'm very grateful that we live in the day and age that we do, where it's so it's so much easier to hear someone else talking about things that you deal with online. Like, if you're not ready to talk about it, you can open TikTok and you can find somebody sharing that, oh, they have the executive dysfunction just like I do, or they didn't get out of bed for 4 days either. It's not just me, I'm not alone. And that's the thing. Depression, you understand, I'm sure, depression PTSD episodes, they make you feel like you are the only person in the world. And logically that's not true, but it feels like you're the only person in the world that is dealing with this, and everybody else would be better off without you. I mean, my experience, that's what it's felt like. And it's been so nice to be able to just open up my phone and find other people going through it. I hate that they're going through it, but it reminds you that this isn't just you. It reminds you it's just a chemical imbalance. It reminds me of those things, and that this doesn't define me. And then I see cat videos, and it's just a nice juxtaposition.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I get the one thing my mom did right was when because at the time when my parents split, divorce hadn't really hit the major acceptable point of view. It was a rarity still. I mean, it was starting to come into play, but my parents were the first in our family to get divorced. So all of a sudden I'm in school, and here's this kid talking about their family. Here's this kid talking about their family. I acted out big time. I mean, and the one thing my mom did right was, I think I was 10 years old, I had a therapist. At 10 years old, I
That's
got a therapist.
amazing.
And the really screwed up thing though is my mother really needed to be in therapy. She really needed to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist to get in balance, because apparently after she died, my dad finally opened up to me and tells me, oh, well, your mom tried it when you were little several times over.
Oh,
Okay. So, but here's the thing. As horrendous as that seems, it taught me a lot about who I am. It taught me that when I have one of those dark days, because
yeah.
so I have pain issue, and the doctor's like, oh, well, we're going to put you on Cymbalta. Okay. Which I shouldn't be saying the name of the drug. Sorry, folks. But
I'm on that too.
I was on it for 3 days. And within 3 days, I started having thoughts of my husband would be better off if I wasn't around. Because of having my mom, I immediately recognized this isn't me.
Yeah.
And so I was able to get off of it. When I talked to the doctor, he's like, well, it's a good thing you recognize that. Okay. But the people that don't recognize that, how do you, and like you said, now you can go on TikTok, you can go on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
There are people there that you can see. My mom never had that luxury. I
No.
did somewhat, because I've always been open about, yeah, I have a therapist. Because to
And I'm sure that
me,
comes from you having it at such a young age. It's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And I mean, what was funny is when my husband's parents got sick, he had siblings, and I'm like, you really should see a therapist. And he's like, nope, not going to go to therapy with you. I'm like, You really should come with me. Nope, not going to do it. Finally, one day he says, buy me a fish sandwich and I'll go. I'm like, okay. And so he went, and we went through his family's death, and ultimately part of him preparing for his passing. And he's like, that was the best thing I could have ever done, because it helps so much being able to talk about my family without the problems, without having somebody sit there and judge.
That's the thing. That is the key right there is, when we say to people, when we who've been through therapy and seen how well it can help you, when we say, have you thought about going to therapy? That's not an indictment of your character, of your life, of your parents, of your parenting. It's not an indictment of you. It's saying you deserve to be in a room where you're not going to be judged, to have an expert in the field listen to your stories without bias, without listening to argue, without listening to rebut, just simply listening to understand, and then helping you with all of that combined better understand yourself. That is what therapy is. And I think that so many people, I understand. It took me so long I didn't get into therapy till I was 22. And it was because of the depression that I realized I had at 21 that I think I've had my whole life, basically. But, I was resistant to it too, because I just thought, I'm such a thoughtful person. I'm so inward thinking. I try to be very aware, like, am I going to pay money for somebody to tell me things that I might possibly have already thought of? That kind of thing. But it really is incredible how helpful that can be.
Well, and it can help you reframe things. It can help you see patterns. I mean, for a long time, I kept realizing that one of my best friends, it would be a pattern. I'd have a best friend, and then I'd realize about midway into the friendship that this person reminds me of my mother. And that's not necessarily the best thing in the world. So why is that? So you can start seeing patterns, and that actually helps you break the cycle. Yeah. But the one thing that this is where most people don't really get depression, anxiety, whatever. It's a freaking cycle. So there's one little incident, even if you've worked through all your stuff, that there's going to be a moment where something's going to trigger you. And you can go right back to where you were, to the people pleaser, to the I'm sorry, to being in bed for 4 days.
Yep. And you'll never see it coming.
No.
You'll never see it coming. And by the time that you realize what's happened, for me at least, it's already, the way that I look at my dark days, or the way that I'm a very visual person, and I just have these like visualizations that come into my head. And so for this one, for my dark days, it feels very much like, have you seen Get Out?
No, I always wanted to, but I have not seen it yet.
Okay.
But I understand the premise of it. I understand some of the premise of it.
Well, he goes to, or is sent to, what they call the Sunken Place, and it is within his own body, and he's in this very dark kind of void, and he's just sitting on a chair or couch or something and looking at a screen that is what he is seeing through his eyes, but it's almost like he's deep within himself, and his body's just on autopilot, right? That's what it feels like for me. I remember being so incredibly jarred when I watched that movie, because that particular visualization hit home so well with my dissociation, with my PTSD episodes and my depression. And for me, by the time I realized that trigger has happened, like you were talking about, I'm already in the Sunken Place. Yeah. And I can't just get out. I don't have a ladder. I don't have a way to get out. I have to wait until that is revealed to me, or you know what I mean? And it's scary.
That's one thing, I've been in therapy quite a long time. And that's the thing. The stigma is, if you're in therapy, you're crazy. And it's not that at all. It's actually, I'm willing to get help, and I'm willing to work through things and figure things out. The best way my therapist described the situation with me picking people is, it's a pothole. You're walking down the street, and there's this pothole, and you trip right into that pothole, kind of like your hole you were talking about.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, damn, why did I do that? So you get yourself up, keep walking. Next time you're coming along, there's the pothole. You may fall into it again. By about the fourth or fifth time, you're kind of going, okay, I'm going to walk a little past it. And by the sixth, seventh time, you're like, I'm done. I'm walking another path. I'm not on this. But you always have to remember that, yeah, there's still that trigger, that one little thread that can.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see What Dreams May Come with
I
Robin
don't believe
Williams?
so.
That movie, his wife commits suicide, and he takes you onto this really messed up journey. And there was a painting in it that has always spoken to me, but it was a very dark movie, and it triggered me because at the time I was still dealing with my mom's death. So it's a very depressing movie, but it's a very visual movie. It was during the time in the 90s, like The Cell with Jennifer Lopez, where they had these very bright visuals that were beautiful. But the movies weren't, The Cell was not the best movie in the world, but the visuals were great.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
So not that is anything we're talking about, but
no,
one movie led me to the other movie.
We're good. I'll check them both out.
So, I appreciate your honesty and your candor about it, because when we sat down here talking, we didn't even mention, I didn't even know that we were really going to go there. And that's the thing about this. It's like you're sitting down at a coffee shop and you just start talking to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So how hard, do you ever get to such a place where you're just like, I just can't go on? And how do you work past that for you? What is something that heals you? Do you have like somebody that's going to come pull you out?
Okay, I'm gonna get emotional.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm fine being emotional as long as you're fine with me being emotional.
I'm fine.
So, I'm an open book.
How do I really am, this?
And I try to be. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I've made many of people cry when I've read their cards, so it's okay.
Yes, I try to be an open book because for so long I felt so very silenced, and I know what it's like to suffer and no one would ever imagine that you do. So this is very fresh for me. Okay, so I had this like boom on TikTok in August, I think August 8th, and it was great. I mentioned the Stoker name and about the business and just kind of trying to get the name out there. And I was ready to talk because we were 3 years old, the business. And I thought, okay, I wanted to wait until I could see that our business could stand on its own 2 feet before mentioning this for interviews and things like that. So I did, and I made the video, and I got lots and lots of interviews, and I spent pretty much all of August just doing interviews and making TikToks and just being very outwardly present, and putting a lot of energy in that after having not done so for a very long time. And then September hit, and it was like, oh God, it was like the roof came crumbling down and the foundation was crumbling and it was just bad. It was really, really bad. And the first 2 weeks of September, I tried and I was like, okay, it's fine. I'm gonna, I had my days, but I was still able to like get up and do things and run my errands and do my chores and all that kind of stuff, get all my work done. But usually that lasts a few days, and then I can do something to pull myself out of it, whether it's, I'm tired of the room being so messy, I'm going to clean it up, and then that inspires me to feel better or something, or gives me a dopamine increase, or I'll do my nails, watch 2 movies, do my nails for a while, that'll make me feel better. Little things that might trigger me to go the other way, in the same ways that triggers can be very quickly take you to a dark place. I like to call these my glitters.
Nice.
So I try to find, I try out when I can, when I'm done being in that dark place, and because sometimes you need to sit there, and I do try to sit there and reflect when I have those moments. But usually when I'm done reflecting and I'm like, okay, this dark place is getting sad, real sad, real sad. Like not just, there's levels and it's getting there. So I need to really try my glitters, and something hopefully will hit. And I've got music or movies or people or activities, little things like that. And I have a list that I keep in my phone to remind me, because again, sometimes when you're in those dark places, you're not able to think straight. So cross stitching. I love cross stitching, that kind of thing, embroidery. And after 2 weeks, I tried a few different glitters and nothing was working. Nothing was working. My movies, my music, I knew it was really bad. And it sounds such a cat lady thing, but it was bad. I knew it was bad when I looked at my cats and I didn't feel that usual warmth that reminds me of that connection. And I don't know, the last 2 weeks of September are a blur. I barely left my bed. There were, I know, 4 days straight that I think I got out of bed only to use the restroom and grab some sort of prepackaged meal from the kitchen, and I would come back, and I mean, I didn't watch TV. I literally just sat in bed and laid in bed and ate when I needed to eat, used the bathroom when I needed to use the bathroom, and otherwise I was laying down, reading, sobbing, sleeping, hurting, reading, sobbing, sleeping, hurting. It was just this constant, because that's another thing, the pain of the physical pain that I go through on a daily basis is also extremely, it gives you a feeling of hopelessness. I've been dealing with it for so long, and I'm working on it. I'm trying to get it fixed, but that doesn't change the everyday struggle. Yeah. And so this past September, just the last 2 weeks was the lowest I've been in a very long time. And I knew I had to do something because nothing was working. So I decided I was going to go visit my partner, who lives about 8 hours away right now. That we're separated for a little while, which is sad, but I needed to see him. And he in those darkest moments when even my cats weren't making me feel anything, which is, again, for me, huge. If you know me at all, which people are getting to, they'll know that about me. And he was the only thing that helped me see through that and reminded me, I could hear his voice reminding me, this isn't you. This isn't you. This is your chemical imbalance. This is not a reflection of who you are. This is not a reflection of your relationships, because you are loved and you are cherished. He tells me that probably once a day. And I could hear it in his voice. I could hear it. And so I planned to leave. And the Saturday I was supposed to leave, I just could not get out of bed. And I sobbed on the phone with him for hours until finally, after all of that, I felt so much better already. Even though so much better from that point was still very low, I knew he was the key. And I know that, that might not be the healthiest thing. And I know you have to, but when you're on the brink of doing something bad, you have to find whatever key it is. And let me tell you, he's a very wonderful key. And he genuinely loves me in a way I've never felt before or been loved before. I've had a lot of disappointment in my life. And so but he was it. And so I visited Mobile, where I'm from, where he's living right now, for a couple of weeks, 2 weeks, and here I am doing interviews again and doing TikToks again. So
was it just too much, or did
I think I'm trying to figure that out. So right now what I'm doing, because I do love this. I love speaking with people and connecting and talking about all of this. But what I'm trying to do is like, okay, don't burn out. Like, let's just do a week, and then we'll give a week off to just catch up with everything else we need to catch up on, what we didn't have time to do because we were doing this. And then we'll do another week after that, and just kind of take it slow. And I think what happened was I was so overwhelmed and happily overwhelmed by the positive response that I was receiving from the video that I never expected. I mean, I went from 138 followers on TikTok to 60.8 thousand, I think. Wow. And that was in like 48 hours. So I'm still overwhelmed with responses, appreciative, but overwhelmed. And so I think what I was trying to do is like, everybody was so excited to get me on their shows. And I was just like, okay, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And I wasn't paying enough attention to, would this be detrimental to me right now? Which it was, but I don't regret it or anything. It's just, I just need to be a little bit more considerate of myself with time management. Because yeah, it's pretty bad. And like my endometriosis too, when it rears its ugly head, there is nothing I can do. Nothing I can do but lie in the fetal position and cry myself to sleep. That's it. Like there is no pushing through that, unfortunately. Someday, like my depression, there are plenty of days I push through that. Plenty of days. But the pain of the endometriosis is just, it's not fun.
There's just some days where self-care has to be key. Yeah. You have to put you first. And I mean, that's a hard thing. And it's a lesson that I didn't even realize I wasn't necessarily taking the best care of myself. I was so focused on making sure my husband was okay that after that, after he passed, it was kind of like, okay, so now who am I and where do I go and how am I taking care of myself? What do I need to do? And I'm still trying to figure out that. And yeah, I will say that September and part of October so far has been tough months. I'm sure astrologically.
Yeah, Mercury is in retrograde.
Yes. Yeah. Mercury retrograde. Pluto just went direct. But I mean, it's like there's 4 other planets besides these. That,
come on. Positive influences.
It's like you feel like, somebody has a boot up your butt or something, and you're just, what's next? Please don't, I used to joke, I would say every time I turn around, my husband would tell me, quit turning around. Because it felt like every time I turned around, something else was happening. And she's just like, quit turning around.
Quit turning around. Quit asking. Just
if
chill.
It would be that easy, it would be great. It would be great.
I like it though. I think that's a good reminder for those of us who always have our wheels spinning. We're always doing something until our body or our mind shuts it down for us, and says, you got to stop.
Yeah. Well, another favorite expression.
Hey, you got to chill.
Another favorite expression of his was go with the flow. And what's funny about that though, is he wasn't one to go with the flow.
He just didn't tell you to.
It's just like, go with the flow. Yeah, okay. And are you? No. But I never called him on it. It was just like, okay, whatever. So what else? Let's see, what else can we talk about? I mean, we've had quite the enlightening conversation and I appreciate your honesty. So do you offer, do you do readings on the side? Are you a professional reader now? Or are you just selling the cards?
I have done readings. I usually don't charge for readings because I don't want to. I have so many hustles going on and projects, and I know me, and like I will very quickly, if I start charging, I'm going to be making it a business, and and so I'll do readings for friends and family. Every once in a while, somebody might ask me for a reading online, and I'll do one for free. But I really like to just kind of limit it to people I know and love and want to give a gift of reading to. And my roommate and I read for each other all the time. I do almost daily readings for myself. And so I wouldn't call myself a professional reader. I would call myself a skilled reader. But I don't want to do it. I just, it's not in the cards for me right now.
Yeah.
I just joined a band. I'm part of an online musical cast. I've got the Ghoulish Garb. There's a lot going on. My partner's 8 hours away, family's 8 hours away. Yeah, it's a lot. I got a lot.
And I'm going to unpack all this, and I can see why you ended up having a break. I don't want to say breakdown, but ended up being overwhelmed.
Well, and it's a lot. It's a lot. And I always want to, I am a people pleaser in a lot of ways, which I have to combat. And the anxiety, makes it so much worse when you have to cancel on something, because it's like, oh God, I'm the worst. And now I'm hurting and depressed and anxious. And it's just awful. So sorry, go ahead.
No, I get it. I completely get it. I mean, running a podcast, it's like there are days when no disrespect to any guests that I've ever, you and I had to reschedule for both of us at a certain point. I think I had lost my voice and you had your situation with the endometriosis. But I mean, I have PR people I work with occasionally now, and it's like calling them and saying, I can't do this today, doesn't really go well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of those things where it's like, because one of them I actually was doing an interview with for her, and it was like, she's like, oh, just have some tea, your voice will be fine. And I'm like, okay. So her and I are great, it's fine. Yeah. But she made me push through, and I did it, but it was just kind of like, some days you just don't have it in you.
Yeah, so, I understand. I do.
I know you do. So the Ghoulish Garb. Now, do you have your own website too? Yes.
So we do technically have a website, but again, it's just my business partner and me, and so we have not updated the website in a hot minute. So I'm going to direct you to our Etsy shop. You can go to etsy.com/shop/the Ghoulish Garb, all one word. We're also on eBay and Amazon, but it is a little bit easier to navigate just the shop page on Etsy to see everything we have listed. However, our shadow edition of the Tarot deck, I think I've already said this, but I'm going to say it again, is on Amazon for $10 off with free shipping. So,
and how long is that going to run through?
Till the end of October.
All right. So yes. So by the time this airs, it'll still be available. So grab it. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
We are working on the Major Arcana for the Goddess deck. I said that'll be done at the end of next year, hopefully, but keep a lookout on all of our social media at _Ghoulish_Garb. And I will be posting whenever we have new designs there, which I need to get better about because I've been so busy, but I'll get back on it. But yeah, we have new designs there almost pretty much once or twice a month. We are doing goddess designs, and I'm telling you, we learned a lot with that first deck, and I'm so proud of it, and I love it to this day. These goddess designs are amazing, like even more. Like I just can't get over them. I'm so proud of them. So please go check out our goddess designs. If you want to see what we have, you can go to our Etsy shop, and in the search bar, just simply search goddess hoodie maybe, and you'll see all of them without having to look through all the variants. But yeah, very excited.
I want to thank you for not only your wonderful story about your lineage, but your honesty. It's very nice that you're being honest about who you are and everything you do and everything you go through. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. I really appreciate the non-judgmental atmosphere where I can be honest.
That's what I try to make it here, because as a lot of people have told me, I'm an open book as well. So if you guys are going to be open, I need to do that for you guys too. So thank you.
That. Thank you.
Thanks guys for listening. Shanna's story is pretty incredible, and I hope you learned something from it. And maybe even if you're struggling with anxiety or depression, realize that there is help, that you can reach out to somebody. And therapy doesn't have to be a dirty word. It can be something that can help you immensely. And understand that normal is not necessarily normal, and crazy isn't really crazy. There is a very, very normal way to look at mental health. And for so long, it's been stigmatized. And people like Shanna that are honest and sharing their story can change that. So if you need help, reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, because there's somebody that cares, whether you realize it or not. As far as Shanna, please follow her on social media. That's actually how I found her. One of my friends said, hey, she's looking to do interviews. So I was one of those people in August that reached out. And she has some amazing designs. She has a great deck. So definitely check her out and follow her on social media. She'll appreciate the support. And as always, I appreciate your support. So if you want to leave a comment on the video, it's on YouTube. You can always rate us on Apple. If you have a question or a comment, you can always send me an email at donna@thebetter2podcast.com. Our website is www.better2podcast.com. As always, thank you for listening. Have a great day and catch you next time. Bye. You are listening to the Better 2 Podcast with DM Needom.